From child brides to chain makers, from teen moms to trailblazers, from silence after rape to speeches that shake nations, from forgotten names to forces of history. She rolls beyond trauma, past mistakes, and everything meant to break her. This is the Beyond Her Odds Show. Real stories that inspire you to rise, to heal, to lead. Because if she did, so can you.
We're back again to the show. If you're just tuning in, this is Beyond Her Art Show on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. And like I said earlier, I'm here with my guest, Mrs. Opeyemi. We call her Coach Ope. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
For having me.
And last week we had the amiable Coach Tegar on the show, and she spoke about drug abuse, substance abuse, if you call it.
Yeah.
And then she took us through her journey, which was really heartbreaking. Seeing someone who was a very bright child go from being the first in her state, third in the nation, to now dropping out of school, university, couldn't remember a lot of things. And then she went into even losing 13 years of her life before she got her life back on track because of drug abuse. And so we are taking the conversation again here today with our guest today, but this time around with a little bit of twist in it. And if you've been following the show, you realize that there's always a rhythm to the show. Our first guest on the show spoke about abuse as a child. Our second guest on the show spoke about abuse in marriage. And our third guest on the show was divorced 7 months into a marriage. We had Coach Tega last week on the fourth episode of the show who battled drug addiction. And today we're here with Coach Okwe, who started from low self-esteem, but into another form of addiction we'll be talking about very, very soon. So, Coach Okwe, it's nice to have you on the show.
For having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Gosh, so I can see the Wholesome Woman International on your t-shirt, and
Yay!
And it just means that right now what you're doing is helping women and girls to become whole again.
Absolutely.
So tell us the story, what happened? Why are we here today? Because I put on social media and people are asking, hey, are you sure this really happened to this person? From going into primary school at 8, going to secondary school at age 8, before your 9th birthday. I can't even imagine. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, hey, now what? And then going into secondary school at university at 15.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot to handle. You were really young. So what happened to you?
I was a really smart child, in primary school, really, really smart. And so, I skipped, I think 2 or 3 classes, double promotion.
Yes.
So I didn't do grade 3, I didn't do grade 5 and 6. Right, so I wrote my common entrance in grade 4.
Wow.
Right, so I passed, and everybody thought,
then it was a thing of pride, like, my daughter is very smart, she's intelligent enough to get to secondary school,
And so I got the admission and got into, in fact, I had admission into like almost 10 secondary schools.
Wow, I should ring a bell.
So I got admission, and I went into boarding house.
No, at 8?
Yes. At 8, I went. My parents sent me into the boarding house. I mean, it was a Christian school, so nobody would have expected, anything to go wrong, right? So I got into secondary school at the age of 8, and, I was still a baby, literally. I was still a baby. That was this phase where, I still should have been getting encouragement, validation from my parents, love, attention. I was literally a baby, but I was now put in this world where it was me, these older kids, trying to navigate. I didn't even know what a period was. I didn't even know what it meant, and so I was now put in that place where it seemed like I just had to feel among or be among to feel validated or to feel like I belong here. Just one, or the secondary school is a child of 8 years shouldn't belong there, right? So I felt like, I had to do what I needed to do, right, to feel among, to feel like, okay, yes, I'm not being left out, so when certain discussions are being taking place, I would try to say, oh yes, I know, meanwhile I have no idea, but it was all in the bid for me to feel among, right? And so I started to, and I think, when your friends or your classmates see you as somebody who doesn't have a mind of their own, it's very easy for them to, want to sit on you and take. So a couple of the friends that I had there knew that this girl was just a baby who didn't have a mind of her own. We could toss her this way, we could toss her that way, right? So this was me now trying to do everything. If they say let's jump fence, I will jump fence. If they say let's cheat in our test or during the test, I would do.
And you
that.
were smart.
I was smart, but then I did not now believe in myself anymore. I believed that everything that I had to be was dependent on what my friends, what my classmates said, or just our relationship in general. And so it went from there. The higher the class, the more exposure, the more, and so by the time I got into GS3, I was now very notorious in school.
No.
I was very notorious. I now had, our seniors then, the SS3 kids, right? They were now like my people. Imagine a GS3 girl who was barely 10 or 11, now rolling with people who were in SS3 who were 17, 18.
You were a child with adults.
So they would jump fence. I remember them. My school was in Wuse too. They would jump fence and go and buy meat pie at I can't remember the place anyways. And I would go with them because I felt cool. I felt like that was the cool thing to do. Like it made me feel, among, and people were afraid of me. Like almost she's rolling with, So and I moved on to the university. I was 14, turning 15.
Wow. In
fact, the school was going to turn me down. But my parents thought, this girl is smart. We don't want her to stay at home. Let her. It wasn't a thing of joy for you to stay at home after. So my parents begged one way or the other, and they admitted me.
They did because you were smart and you passed. Absolutely. But then you had already carried on a lot of vices from secondary school that you are now taking to ship into university.
Yes, and I forgot to add as well that while I was now in SS3, like that was the biggest class in quote, So I had moved school. So to tell you how notorious I was, my parents kept changing my schools.
No way.
At this point, I now got to the stage where they were always reporting me for something, or my grades were, now at this time, my grades were...
Still in secondary school.
Yeah, still in secondary school. My grades were dropping, right? Because the focus was not there. My notes were never complete, And so by the time I was in SS3, this was a new school, by the way. So I went there for the summer lessons first, so I can test run how the school was, And so by the time I got there, I met this group, the cool kids of the school. They sit at the back, never talking their shirts, you know what I mean. And one way or the other, I just found myself in there because they were cool, right? I will always, if I'm not in the cool group, then
it's not happening.
There's a problem. So I, found myself in their midst, and one day, one of the guys, who was in the group, he put a particular CD in my dictionary.
Was he trying to get your attention? You were already a part of the group, so
I was already a part of the group. He was asking me to be his girlfriend at this time.
Okay.
Right? And I was not giving him that attention, right? Because I was a very sought after child, I would say. So he slipped this CD in my dictionary, right? I didn't even know what it was because there was no label, right? So he just told me that I should play it when I have the time, right? So I went home, I played this CD, and lo and behold, it was pornography.
No way. No way. You were in SS3.
I was in SS3.
A baby. We probably 13. Yes.
Yeah.
Because of moving from school to school, you would have lost a few years, of course, because you got in at 8. And then you were introduced to this by another person, a boy in your class.
Yes.
And no. This is a lot to take in because at that age you're supposed to be in like GS2, like so just coming in fresh into secondary school, but you're already in senior class, and that's a lot to take in. And I think that the reason why it was easy for him to do that is because you were hanging out with them.
Absolutely.
And so I always like to interject to kind of talk to people who are listening, especially our youngsters who are the focus of the show, to just say who are watching us to say that the kind of people that you hang out with determine the kind of things that they share with
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
So if you hang out with the cool kids and they read their books, they're going to be sharing notes with you. They're going to be
Absolutely.
teaching you how to
Mhm.
work on your handwriting.
Yeah.
They're
gonna
going to
be
telling
teaching
you
your maths,
you're
you
going to
know.
do revision with them and all that.
Yeah.
But if you hang out with the cool kids that are now doing the things that parents would not want you to do,
Yeah.
we know for sure that what's going to happen is that they're going to like she just said, slip in a CD to you, kind of. And it could even be drugs, like Coach Tega said last
Yep.
week. So Coach Okpa is telling us right now that they slipped a CD that has explicit things inside that our children should not have any business watching. And that is where it started from, right? And you're going to tell us more about that.
Of course, I mean, as a child, any child who sees something like that without supervision is going to be very curious, right? And so that's, started the journey of, what we call addiction, is now having the interest to watch back to back, because of course I've chilling with the cool kids in quotes. They've had conversations about these things. They've talked about these things. Some of them have spoken about the things that they have watched, of the things that they've gotten access to. So I had an idea, right? And now seeing it, now getting to watch it, live it seemed interesting, right? And so one thing that addiction does is that once, you don't cut it off, the second time, you are going to be in it.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. And so that was the journey. It was, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. Honestly, I thought that I was just watching this for fun. Right? I didn't even know the damage it was doing to my brain. I didn't know how it was affecting my focus. I didn't even know what it was, even my sleep. Right? It affected my sleep. Because when you are watching something back to back, imagine sitting on something for hours, you're going to start having dreams about it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to start fantasizing. You're going to start, imagining. So it did a lot. It did a whole lot. I isolated myself, because if you're watching something that you shouldn't be watching, you're not going to do it where people will see you.
Exactly.
Right? So you're going to hide in a corner. Sometimes under your duvet, sometimes by the bed, sometimes in the toilet. So what addiction does is that it isolates you, right? It puts you away from every other person. So sometimes when my cousins, family was just around, I will be the only one tucked under my duvet. Right?
Because you want to watch
Because
this
I just
content.
wanted to watch this content. My mind will not even be where people are. My mind will be, I want to. So it did a lot of damage on the brain. Right? And so going into university,
But no one caught you.
No one caught me. Okay, so there was a time I remember going to my uncle's house in Lagos, and I had access to their iPad, right? And then I didn't even know that we had what's it called, Google History. By this time I was in my year 1, right? And so I had left their house. I went back to school, and they called me like, Ope, don't tell me you are the one watching this, Of course, I confessed. They talked, but it didn't do anything. It really did not do much, because I still had that freedom. I didn't have anyone I was accountable to.
Okay.
I didn't have anyone that, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have, even in school, I really didn't have, I was just a little baby, left to...
At 15.
Yeah, at 15, you understand. I could barely even think for myself. And there I was, I had to struggle with schoolwork. I remember my first semester, I had, out of about 6 subjects, I had 4 Fs. Yeah. So my grades, of course, because I'm not reading anymore. And then now I'm chilling with a higher level of cool kids. You know how the university is, right?
Yes,
this is me at 15, 16, now chilling with people who are 25, 20, 18, and now because of that exposure, you're made to be in relationships you have no business being in.
Don't tell me about it. Of course.
Made to be. And of course, when a guy who is 20 sees you who is 16, 15, you don't even know your left from your right, he's going to take advantage of that. He's definitely going to take advantage of that.
And because you've already been exposed to adult stuff, you felt like an adult.
I felt like an adult. There was nothing anybody had to say to me. I remember one time when the crew was leaving school, and I followed them. Like you would do you would even go as far as risking your life.
Can imagine.
That's what validation addiction does. That's another form of addiction that I had. Beyond, the other one, that was a form of addiction I struggled with from a child even up to being an adult. It's a serious addiction because you now have to rely. This person says, okay, let's leave school. It's not right, but you don't have the confidence to tell them, no, I can't do this. And this confidence is something that we have to keep building in our young girls, over and over. We cannot overemphasize it because we need to teach them that it's okay to say no.
Very okay. I say always beyond the classroom when we have project with girls, I always say no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely.
Like it's not even a word or a phrase. In fact, just leave it. It's a complete sentence. Absolutely. No. So there's no, do you mean no, I like it, or no, don't do it, or no, yes. There's no addition. No, it's no. We need to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I didn't know how to say no, so I just got myself involved in a lot of circles, involved in a lot of back and forth. And then by the time I got to my third year in university, I remember, what's it called? They called us, our result and everything was pasted in the department's board. And I went there and I saw that I was on probation 2. Probation 2 means that another F and you're out.
Kicked out. I'm sure some people can relate.
Yeah, and I sat there, I thought about my parents. Now, going through all that I went through as a child, my parents didn't have a clue because all they saw was this perfect, bright child, and because of the fear of telling them, okay, this is what's going on in school, this is what is, and that is why even as a mom now, I always ensure to make my kids understand that it's okay, just tell me. It's okay, just tell me. You don't have to be afraid, right? So because of this fear, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't. And so I thought about them. I thought about the reputation it would have on them. And I knew how important it was, for my parents to see that, okay, I'm the first child. I'm the only girl. Like, it was a big deal for them. And so I called my dad crying and I told him, I said, this is what's going on in school. I had reached a crossroad, and the next day he was in my school. He took came by road, and the next day he was in my school. Imagine. Met all my departments, leaders, the dean, and all of that. And said, how can we help this child? First and foremost, my hostel was changed. I had to. It was now a thing of, is it that this or this?
Yeah. So I really love that you tell us the steps that that your dad took to help you. And I know your dad is a cool guy.
Yeah.
But then I want to also emphasize this is that those listening, and if you're young, it is okay to talk to your parents.
Yeah.
And the parents might not tell you that it's okay to talk to them, but it's actually okay to talk to them. They are the safest people you can talk to. See,
they will yell, they would
almost want to kill you. In fact,
but they will, like, I imagined, if I had, I'm thinking about it now. I really wish I had told my dad even from the first year.
Yes.
So what happened was I had been lying about my results from year 1. I had been lying and lying. So by the time I saw that this lie,
well, there's no way out of it anymore.
There's no way out of it. Trust me, they're going to be upset. They're going to discipline you because I had a lot of privileges taken away from me at that point. Even though he came, he tried to, salvage the situation, but I still faced the consequences.
So what happens is that I always go back to the young people who are watching and listening to us on the show to say that what it does is that if she moved from seeking validation to now rolling with the bad people, bad friends, older people who took advantage of her naivety as a child, and it was like the devil and the hard place, so you had to just choose one. And then she continued and then led to someone giving her a CD. It was pornographic content and from one addiction to, and just so you know, when you get into that, it also leads to drugs. It also leads to drugs. So I want us to talk about the last part of how you got help, but also talk about how we moved from seeking validation for low self-esteem to getting to watching pornographic content and being hooked on it, and then going into doing other things like drugs with your friends. At what age did that one start?
This was about in my second year.
Wow.
So by the time I was in my first year, I had a boyfriend. At 15, I had a boyfriend, and my boyfriend had friends who the clique, we just always have to hang around them, right? And so that was like my introduction prior to this, by the time I was in SS3, I already knew what, codeine was. I had a taste of it, right? And so now being in the university and seeing it like free,
It's everywhere.
it's everywhere, and that was literally the beginning. And what codeine does is that it slows you down, slows your mind, slows your thought process, right? And so I would barely read a page of my notes, and I could read it for like 2-3 hours and not get a thing out of it, because my brain couldn't. Remember, I'm a child. If someone who is 15, their brain isn't developed yet they are now taking things to make their brain slow.
Wow, that was a lot.
So that was literally the introduction, and it was from one thing to another, smoking, now being exposed to even marijuana.
No way.
And because this thing, the way it works is that it puts you on a level where it's like, that's the best place you can ever be in this life.
Exactly.
And so you keep wanting more. You keep wanting more, no matter how hard you try. Sometimes you hear people say, if I don't smoke, I won't think well.
Yes.
If I don't smoke, I have people, back then when I was in school, they would say, if I don't smoke, I won't be able to read. If I don't smoke, I won't be able to sleep. So your life is now dependent
on the
drugs, And so one of the steps that my dad made was, first and foremost, you see these friendships that you have around you.
We have to cut them
I
off.
will disgrace you. Like, imagine being, a top shot in school, and then having your father coming to say, I will pull you out. I will disgrace you. The whole school will know that you're nothing but a child.
But you only got that because you called for help.
Yeah.
A lot of people will not call for help, even though they're dying.
Yes, a lot
even
of
though
people
they're dying. And what it does that, because of the drugs, the bad friends, the pornographic content, and all the other thing, parties, and all that, because of all the lies, you now become a consistent liar. Because you have time to cover a lie with a lie.
Liar.
In fact,
in fact, even being an adult is something that I have to be very conscious about, because that is the long term. Sometimes we talk about short term effects of these things, right? But there are long term effects
of them.
That you just catch yourself lying. Not that you have to, not that anything will happen if you say the truth, but you become by a pathological liar.
So every little thing you're just lying about it. Every little thing you quickly cover up because you're afraid, and it comes from a place of fear.
Yeah,
because you're afraid that you're going to be found out. That they will know that I'm watching porn, or they'll know that I'm doing drugs with my friends, or they know that I club and go to parties. And in the midst of all this, your parents see you. You go to your places of worship. You are the person that they like there. And some people cannot be in choir, like our Danny Tega said.
I was very much involved in
activities in the church.
My parents are core church people, so I was in the GA. I was always going for vacation Bible schools. I was brought up in a proper Christian home.
So your parents would just assume that everything is fine, but everything is not fine. So dear parents listening to us on the show, please talk to your children. Now we're talking about how her father helped her to come out of the chaos, because someone has to at some point help you. But the thing is, you need to come to a place where you are the one that needs help. I tell them all the time, people who say they need addiction from this, from drugs, or from whatever it is, I tell you have to come to a place where you yourself need help, and you want to receive that help. So you wanted that help from your dad, and you made the call. And so at that point, you're ready to, whatever happens, as long as I get help, and all that. So what did your dad do?
Of course, the first thing is we went to the department, spoke to my lecturers, and he now single-handedly, put somebody in charge of me. Now I had somebody I was accountable to, somebody I would be reporting to, almost every day, so I had that responsibility of knowing that, okay, I can't misbehave anymore because this person is watching me. If anything happens, he'll call my dad, right? So that was the first thing. So for me, it's very important to have, our young ones have a guardian wherever they are. Have a guardian, have somebody, be able to watch, monitor them, and call them to order. Right. And so by the time I had to do summer school, of course, to
to make up
to
for
make up for, the grades and
You're always
everything.
doing more summer school, primary school, secondary school, summer
You
school.
understand? So, another thing was to ensure that by the time I was now going to my final year, right, I was put in a hostel that I didn't have. So I didn't even know that my dad did this, right? I already had plans of the particular hostel I wanted to be in, right? But I didn't even know that he had gone behind my back and spoken to some people in school, and they put me with certain people that on a normal day,
normal, you won't be with them.
we will have no business being together, right? And so I was now in this room with people who knew God, who were always praying, who were always reading, always going to class, and of course, I wouldn't want to be left out again. But this was a good cause.
Yes.
Right. And so whenever they were going to read, I would go out with them. If I didn't understand anything, they would put me through. When they were praying, they would wake me up and we'll pray together. And that was that was how I got to know the Lord.
Wow.
Right. Through my roommates. Through
my
roommates,
Ini,
so Tosin, yes, Odunayo.
Shout out to you all.
Shout out to you guys. Honestly, they helped my life in that time and in that season, and so I was able to, manage and graduate. I didn't have an extra year, to the glory of God.
But that would have been hard, Joe.
Yeah.
So how did you cancel those boyfriends? Because it's very. We want to know, because there are people, that's now your father did his job. We want to know your own parts in this thing.
It was really hard. It was really, really hard. There were
did you cut off the relationship? Did you break up via text message?
Yes, I did. I did, have breakups, even with my female friends. There were lots of fights here and there, like, oh, what are you feeling like? What I mean, you have now become all of a sudden Jesus girl. Do you think we're the ones? And mind you, most of these people knew that they were already going to have an extra year. And this was me now taking my life serious of not having an extra. It's like, what are you feeling like? It was a lot. It was a lot of backlash. It was a lot of, insults, name calling. But you have to be willing to, I would say, for lack of a better word, down all the consequences if you want to make a change in your life.
Yeah.
There are going to be there are going to be people in school who will call you, I too know. We hear that a lot.
Yes.
The one who is a beg over sabi because you're getting your notes done, there are always going to be those name callings, right? So I had to. It wasn't easy.
I can imagine.
But it was a gradual process. There were days where I fell short, where one person will call me and I will just give them audience. Right, there were days like that, but then what was important was I was picking myself up. It was a journey, and that's why I said the healing is a journey. It's not something. It's not a aha moment that happens and you just say, okay, yes, I'm healed now. No, it's a journey. It was God taking me from that very moment, up until now. I'm still on that journey, So yeah, those were the steps. Not easy, but
not easy, because if you're listening and you're watching us and you're a young person who is caught up in the web of addiction, whatever the addiction is, be it pornography, be it drug addiction, or like my friend Bologi call it validation junkie, or you are drunk on validation from friends and you need to cut off, there are certain steps that you need to take. It's very difficult for you to cut it off by yourself. You need to find a way to first call out to someone. You need to call out to someone for help. A lot of times it's difficult for you to do it by yourself. Someone should help you and hold you by the hand. So for her, it was her dad that helped her, handed over to somebody else. Then she got new roommates who now helped her, and they held her by the hand, and she started to do what was right at the time. And it's not easy. Coach Tiger said it last week also, that there will be relapses.
Yes,
absolutely. Of course. I'm sure that there will be relapses, because you can't just break from pornography in one day. You can't break from drugs in one day. You can't break from friends in one day. It's a battle. So we might not be sharing deep into the things that happen, but I imagine that you're using your imaginations to think about these things that Coach Okpa is sharing, and every speaker that has come on the show, to just say, look at what he did to her education. That she almost lost out. So if you're caught up in that web, what can you do? She has given us the step. They had to change her hostel, change your environment, change your friends. It might not be easy to find new friends, but nothing at all. Be on your own. You can be by yourself for a couple of months or weeks, or even in fact, you can just be a loner. I know somebody that was a loner when I was in university,
okay to be
and he was okay, and he came out with a very good grade. I was like, hey, this guy that was always by himself. So recovery is hard. How did you recover? Like a step-by-step process. Were you on medication? Did you take a program to recover? Did you have to turn off data on your phone so you don't go to those websites? How did you do to cut off from pornography, especially?
First and foremost, God. Right. And then I had to what's it called? I didn't even know that it existed at the initial time, right? But I now had to switch off content, explicit content on my phone. Right? I had to do away with my laptop. In fact, nobody really understood what was going on in that time, but I put that away. And I stopped even watching movies for some time because, one of the triggers is if I'm watching a movie, for example, and I see, a couple doing something,
and
right?
Movies,
it's a trigger.
Oh my gosh.
It's a trigger. Movies that we have no business watching, at certain ages, it was a trigger. So I had to, cut off those things intentionally, and then now speak to somebody about it, that somebody I can be accountable, that even when I'm relapsing, I can say, okay, this is what is going on, and for me then it was teacher Dora. She was the person who held my hand.
I know Dora.
Yeah. She was the one who I was very, very accountable to at that moment. So yes, those are the things that I did that helped me, was cut off anything that triggers you, whatever it is. If your addiction is smoking, for example, you don't want to be around people that smoke. You don't even want to be around it. You don't even want to be near where they are selling it, right? For me, it was cutting off my laptop. It wasn't easy, but it was something I had to do. And then
turning off the explicit content on your phone.
Yes, sometimes if I had to turn off the data, I would turn off the data. In fact, at a point, I now got a phone that didn't have internet at all, right? So that was like my main call line, and that helped me as well. Nobody even knew these steps I was taking. Mind you, it was a thing of shame to start speaking to a lot of people and say, okay, this is what I'm going through, right? But it was things that I took on my own. That's why right now what I'm doing is helping people, because there are a lot of people who they don't have anyone to talk to.
Yes.
They don't know who to trust, because we also live in a society where it's like, who do you trust?
Very
How
true.
many people are safe spaces, right? So for me, I think one of the reasons why I didn't speak up early on was because first and foremost, I was ashamed. I didn't know that if I could speak to somebody, they wouldn't,
judge
me. They wouldn't expose me. They wouldn't report me, things like that. So that's one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about right now, is helping people.
Which working with them. The Wholesome Woman Network.
Absolutely. Yes. Working with them through that journey, because it's a journey. It's a journey. We want to be able to, when you are having your relapse moment, call someone and say, this is what I have one of my, when I call her clients, anyways, an inside joke, she will call me and say, Coach, I'm about to have a relapse. And I would tell her, bring down everything in your wardrobe, rearrange it. If you have to do that 5 times, 10 times, do that. Because one of the things I figured is the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Especially for a lot of teenagers. Your minds are wired to, imagine, wired to play around, just wonder about. But if you're not imagining the right things, if you're not wondering about the right things, you'll be caught in a web that you don't want to be in. So that's why I say, find something doing. Get a book, challenge yourself, read a book every month, 2 books every month, spelling bee, read the dictionary if you have to. Just keep your mind occupied on the right things.
That's actually a great point, and we're coming gradually to the end of the show, of course, but I hope that you're learning a thing or two from these experiences. So my question now is, if you can speak directly to your 9 or 8-year-old self, what are you going to say to her?
Just one sentence or one line. I'll say you're enough. You don't need anyone to complete you. You don't need any, any statement, any opinion from anyone to make you feel whole, to make you feel complete, to make you feel enough. You are enough just as you are.
You are enough just as you are. And that's a sentence or a phrase that a lot of parents are not telling their children.
Yeah.
And I hope that parents are listening. You are telling your children that they are enough, that they just as they are, and that there is a whole life ahead of them, and that what they are experiencing now is just for now, that there's so much in stock for them as they grow up. I know I saw on your WhatsApp status you were at the IDP camp, teaching girls about period, about self-esteem, and I know one of the facilitators was actually our first guest.
Yes.
Our first guest, Mureni KG, was one of the facilitators, and I was watching the videos and I was just smiling of how someone who was supposed to be, left behind is now helping other people live wholesome lives. So can you tell us quickly about this initiative that you're doing to help young girls live wholesome life and cut off from addiction, both from pornography, from validation for boys, and from drugs?
Yeah, so as part of the Wholesome Woman, community, we started something we called the She Matters initiative, right? So this is us reaching out to young girls, right? Letting them know that they are enough. Like I said earlier, they are encouraging their self-esteem, building their self-esteem, teaching them, just the basic things that some of us think that they know, but they don't know. Relationships, communication, teaching them the importance of school, focus, and just building up their self-esteem.
Yes.
Building up their self-esteem, very, very important. And, just being around them. I remember, the last IDP camp we went to, I had a couple of girls come to me, and, you'll be surprised at how much these girls are going through, but they just feel like, I can't speak to my mom, I can't speak to my dad, but when you go there and you hear them, you're like, wow, there's actually a lot of work that we have to do out there. So that's our mission. Helping girls, building up their self-esteem, encouraging them, helping them to be the better version of themselves, and letting them know that they can be all that they want to be.
Yes, that's very true. And thank you so much, Coach Opeyemi, for this amazing time. It was difficult for her to break through. I bet you, I've heard the story a couple of times, and she's my very close friend. She's in my inner circle, by the way. And so I've heard the story a couple of times, and and so dealing with such, from pornography to drugs to, it wasn't easy. Not as easy as she's saying it on radio. It's not as easy as she's saying it right now.
It's a lot.
It was a lot, I'm sure that if we're going all spiritual, she would have started telling how all this what they spoke in tongues over our head. But because there was also that, and if you notice something around the show, most of the people that came here spoke about how their faith has helped them through their struggle. So thank you for sharing that truth with us. We're really grateful. We hope we can have you again. Maybe not this season, next season. There's always something. But thank you for sharing your light.
Thank you for having me.
To every girl that's listening today or watching us, maybe you're in that cycle where, I can't even name names right now. There's so many things, drug addiction, marijuana, whatever it is, codeine, whatever it is that you're taking that is affecting you. Those substance abuse that is is affecting your education. It would affect you. And just like she mentioned, it will affect your grade. It will affect your relationship with people. Whatever substance you are abusing as a young person now, this is the time to cut off from it. To adults that are listening, we can do better. We can do better to the younger girls and younger boys around us. Let's raise children who don't have to recover from their childhood. People who would enjoy their childhood, who would look back at their childhood and say, I had a good childhood.
Let children be children.
Yes, honestly. And for parents, I was going to mention that parents who push their children into secondary school or university too early, please, you can do better. You can do better. The reason why we're having this show is to talk about the value of education and how these vices are affecting education, especially for young girls. And we've seen all the women that have come here. They've spoke about how the things that they've gotten involved with that affected their education, no matter what it is that they've come across, have affected them in some way, but they didn't allow it to stop them. They rose beyond their odds, which is all we're here again. So thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, you can go to our Instagram handle at Beyond Her Odds. Just send us a DM or make a comment under any post that you see, or the post that has Coach Okwe's picture, or just send us a DM and we'll respond to your question immediately. We got a couple of questions from last show about drug abuse. Thank you for sending your questions. We are very grateful that you're able to take our time to do that. And we will be back here again next Thursday at 3 p.m. with another woman who is rising, who is healing, and who is leading the way, and she's gone beyond her odds, and now she's helping other people to find their way. Until then, please don't forget, my name is Raquel Kasham Dania. You can call me RKD, and I'll be here again next week with another exciting episode. Have a great week.